My wife Willow and I are both prominent attorneys in the capital. She's a standout in the world of finance law, known not just for her legal skills, but also for her poised elegance. I've made my name specializing in divorce cases. Over the years, we've built a solid partnership both at home and in our careers, and many see us as the gold standard for a power couple in the legal field. But everything shifted after a seemingly ordinary class reunion. That's when Willow crossed paths with her college sweetheart, Makoto. These days, he's the picture of success luxury vehicles, a sprawling mansion, the whole package. As people gathered around to bask in his glow, he suddenly began recounting, in vivid detail, the heartbreak of betrayal. His raw honesty took everyone by surprise, his words so heavy they seemed to press against the walls. Even Willow, usually composed, was visibly affected, almost as if she wanted to rush over and comfort him right there. The twist came not long after. Instead of approaching me, Makoto hired Willow as his personal divorce lawyer, paying a substantial retainer up front. They began working closely, often late into the night behind closed office doors. When Willow eventually expressed discomfort and suggested transferring the case to another attorney, I shut that idea down. He'd already paid, and professionally speaking, we had a duty to deliver. Initially, I hadn't planned to join her. At the reunion, there was still work waiting at the office. Besides, reunions often bring old flames together, and my presence might have made things unnecessarily tense. But Willow teased me gently, calling me the ever-dedicated attorney Wong, who prioritized work over his wife. "You're still the firm's shining star," she said with a smile. She assured me the gathering was all about celebrating current lives, not reopening old wounds. That convinced me. The work could wait. I changed clothes and went along. I didn't realize then just how prophetic her words would turn out to be. As expected, we bumped into Makoto. He and Willow had been inseparable during their university days, the ideal couple on campus. But after graduation, their paths diverged. Willow went on to graduate school, while Makoto entered the workforce. Time and distance took their toll, and Makoto eventually began dating someone else, rumored to be the daughter of his boss. Willow never dwelled on that chapter, only ever saying, "Everyone follows their own path." Still, it's hard to imagine that a first love, especially one left unresolved, doesn't leave some lingering trace. Makoto looked a bit thinner than I remembered, his complexion pale, but brightened by an unreadable smile. His demeanor was polished, yet he'd come alone. A classmate asked casually why his spouse hadn't joined. He offered only a vague smile in response. I glanced over at Willow, who was cheerfully chatting, and gave me a relaxed smile, no sign of any emotional undercurrent. As drinks flowed, the mood lightened. People exchanged job leads, swapped business cards, and talked shop. By the time you're in your 30s, reunions become more about professional networking than nostalgia. Even the word spouse becomes another tool for social capital. But Makoto remained off to the side, a bit out of place. Perhaps the world of transactional small talk was foreign to him. He'd lived a very different life, and someone walked over with a drink, half joking, "I heard you married rich, fancy cars, luxury living, don't forget us working stiffs." They asked again why he didn't bring his wife. After a moment of silence, Makoto emptied his glass and replied hoarsely, "I might be getting divorced." What was meant as light banter turned into an emotional moment. The room fell quiet. Tears welled in Makoto's eyes as he spoke again. "It's my own fault. I wasn't good enough." Someone tried to lift his spirits with another drink, and slowly he began opening up. It was a familiar story. His wife's family held all the power. His father-in-law looked down on him, his wife treated him like staff, and at work he was used as unpaid help. Worst of all, he came home from a trip only to find his wife in bed with her trainer. When he confronted them, he was beaten and ended up in the hospital. The story stirred anger around the room. One friend cursed the injustice. Another clapped him on the back and said, "File for divorce, man. Tomorrow we hit the clubs, VIP, room, and some real company." A third, with mock sarcasm, added, "What happened to our strata genius? Time to ditch the baggager." nobody's doormat. Then, inevitably, someone looked toward us. Aren't Willow and her husband running a firm with a top-tier divorce lawyer right here? What are you waiting for? Go all in. Take her for everything. Makoto's mood lifted slightly. He turned to Willow. Her face remained serene, though I felt her grip tighten slightly. She replied, calmly, my husband handles divorce law. If you need guidance, he's the one to speak to. Makoto nodded thoughtfully, then looked directly at me. I've heard great things about Attorney Wong. May I consult you? I understood his case right away. It was all too typical. Wealthy families often act progressive, on the surface welcoming the son-in-law, offering a startup fund, but they keep a tight grip on assets. Everything remains under their control, legally sealed. At any moment, they can cut ties cleanly without cost. I laid out the reality plainly. Even with infidelity, the odds of you getting a significant financial settlement are slim. The car keys you've got, those belong to your father-in-law, right? Same with the house. You'll want to file for unpaid labor instead. If your wife owns nothing outright, the divorce won't yield much. Makoto was stunned. I pointed out that we could potentially recover unpaid compensation, and then decide whether to negotiate privately or keep quiet to avoid it being classified as marital income. Otherwise, he might walk away with nothing and possibly worse. But before I could finish, Makoto's face darkened, stared at me and said, so, after everything I've done for the Lin family, your advice is that Evan, after being cheated on my best hope, is getting my back pay. His bluntness caught me off guard, but I gave a silent nod. That was the legal truth. The elite always prepare their legal defense well in advance, I said calmly. Someone nearby muttered something bitter about the wealthy. Another voiced quiet sympathy for Makoto. Didn't acknowledge Minsta. He turned to Willow. Is that how you see it too? He asked. Willow paused, then sighed faintly. With her experience, she understood the situation better than most. She stayed quiet, and her silence spoke volumes. Makoto let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Rising to his feet and slipping on his jacket, he frowned and declared, I may not have the credentials Attorney Wong does, but I've fought my way through the business world, both domestically and overseas. I've been tested and tempered. I'm no pushover. I've worked in legal departments myself. The laws you know, I know. And I've picked up plenty you might not. I won't grovel for scraps like a broken man. That's the best a so-called top-tier divorce lawyer can offer. He added coldly, then I want no part of it. If I have to go down with the ship to make them pie will, because of that outburst, the reunion ended earlier than planned. Even with the roads empty, the drive home still took nearly 20 minutes. Willow sat silently beside me, head bowed, a deep crease between her brows, the look she wears when a case gets messy. I understood. That would leave anyone unsettled. At home, I went straight to the study to wrap up some leftover work. Willow didn't follow, which wasn't like her. I didn't think much of it until the sharp crash of breaking glass echoed from the living room. I rushed out to find her standing at the wine cabinet, red wine pooling across the floor like spilled ink. I frowned, still thinking about Makoto. Her hand poised above the shards froze. What are you talking about, Makoto? I said simply. She pressed her lips together, and something flickered in her eyes. I felt irritation rise. I hadn't been the only one rattled by his dramatics. In a low voice, I reminded her, you pushed me to go tonight. You also encouraged him to seek my help. Tears clung to her lashes. Her voice trembled. I know. But George, did you have to be so blunt? Couldn't you have been a little more kind? For a moment, I wasn't sure if she meant what I'd said to Makoto or what I was saying now. She dabbed at her eyes and added, you always approach things so logically, like a bystander who sees the dead end before anyone else. But Makoto's already broken. Couldn't you show even a little compassion? I let out a short laugh. Years in court had trained me to speak before thinking. Willow, let's get something straight. I didn't destroy Makoto's marriage. And maybe instead of asking me to feel sorry for him, someone should have taught him that smart people use leverage to get results. If he knew how to use the lore, even he wouldn't be in this mess. You work on asset protection and estate planning all the time, I added. Surely you've realized that those same methods could be used against someone, like your ex. Willow flinched. That hit closer to home than she'd expected. That's not what I meant, she whispered. I raised an eyebrow. Then what did you mean? You think a marriage certificate gives him rights to generational wealth? Or that sob story sway judges? She stayed quiet for a long while, then slowly began wrapping glass shards in tissue, wiping up every drop of wine until the floor was spotless. Only after that did she walk into my arms and murmur, I'm sorry, love. You were right. My emotions get the best of me. I couldn't help feeling a little sorry for him. But you're right, he made his own choices. We didn't argue beyond that. For one, Willow owned up to her mistake and apologized sincerely. And more importantly, I'm a pragmatist. If two people can live together in peace, that's what matters most. There's no need to create drama over things that don't strike at the core of the relationship. Makoto was part of Willow's past before I entered her life. Whatever memories they shared, good or bad, don't just vanish. Time doesn't erase everything. Sometimes it even turns those memories into something quietly valuable, and I allow her that space, because we're all human, and humans get attached. Even with things, the longer you hold on, the harder it is to let go, let alone someone you once loved. If I were in Willow's position, I might not be any more composed. Makoto does deserve some sympathy. He was once full of potential, a top graduate with a bright future. I understand what it feels like to be treated like an outsider, to be undervalued in someone else's world. It's frustrating, it's demeaning. Honestly, I even respect his willingness to burn it all down if that's what it took. That kind of desperation, I've known it too. When I was starting out, I had no say in what cases I took. I just did the work in front of me. But over time, I carved my path, chose to specialize in divorce law. Even so, I've always believed that if something's still worth salvaging, you fight for it. Willow is still very much worth it. She's intelligent, graceful, and has a gentle heart. She's also an incredible cook, and even in her 30s, she's maintained the kind of elegance and figure that most would admire. She's absolutely my type. For now, this marriage is still something I want to protect. Life carried on without incident. We returned to our routines. If one of us finished work early, we'd catch a movie or enjoy a quiet dinner at home. Makoto became more like a passing event, a brief side story in a larger game, till a few weeks later, he came up in conversation again. We were out with friends when someone mentioned that Makoto had been arguing frequently with his wife. Apparently, her father found out about one of their blow-ups and slapped him right in a meeting. In front of other executives, that kind of public humiliation doesn't fade easily. The same person added, he said in the group chat that you and your husband were cold and unkind. What was that about? I looked up, surprised. Willow was preparing vegetables. She paused, then calmly picked up her phone and handed it to me. He tried to add me several times. I didn't accept. I glanced through the screen. 5 friend requests. The first few were polite. This is Makoto. I'd like to ask you something. When Willow didn't respond, his tone shifted. Is this how all lawyers are, aloof and arrogant? She still ignored him. His final message was softer. I wasn't myself that night. Please tell Attorney Wong I'm sorry. Turned to Willow. Are you planning to respond? She shook her head. There's no need. After a brief pause, I typed a reply. No apology needed. George, I assumed that would be the end of it. But a few days later, Makoto appeared at our office, announced, even unexpected visitors deserve courtesy, so I greeted him properly. When I returned from a meeting, I found him standing just outside my door, studying the firm's wall of honors and lawyer profiles. His eyes lingered on Willow's section, where her photo held prime placement. He didn't notice me until several minutes later. What brings you here, Mr. Ito? I asked. He turned and gave a polite smile. You're a smart man, Attorney Wong. Can't you guess? I kept my tone neutral. This is a law firm. If you're here, I assume it's for a legal matter. A sightseeing tour. His smile faded gradually. I wanted to ask, does your firm assign every divorce case to you personally? I leaned back, assessing him. He looked much more composed than the man we'd seen that night, impeccably dressed, confident, and collected. "We have multiple highly qualified attorneys here. Any of them can handle a straightforward divorce," I replied. He stared at me. "What about Willow?" I pointed down the hall. "Her office is just there." "But she's in a meeting." He adjusted his glasses. "Thanks. I've already scheduled an appointment." Willow returned at 4:30. She must have been informed ahead of time, because she didn't react when she saw Makoto. She walked over to me first. "We'll leave at 5, okay?" I nod. We had movie plans. Then she led Makoto into her office. She hesitated briefly before leaving the door ajar, a gesture of transparency. They spoke in low voices. I couldn't make out much, mostly Makoto talking, Willow chiming in now and then. I focused on my work. At 5, the system sent its usual clock-out alert. I looked across the hall. Their conversation continued. At 5:30, I noticed the door had been closed. Moments later, Makoto's laugh rang out. Loud. Too loud for a quiet office. At 5:40, I left for the cinema. Willow didn't arrive. My phone buzzed non-stop during the film. Frustrated, I switched it to airplane mode. When the movie ended and I was walking out with the crowd, I spotted her at the entrance, scanning faces until her eyes found mine. She hurried over, breathless. "I'm so sorry. I lost track of time and couldn't reach you. I came, but they said I was too late. I waited outside for you." There was a faint scent of smoke on her. I frowned. "Let's go home." Later that evening, Willow sat me down. She said Makoto wanted her to take on his case and that he'd opened up about everything. He's really been through a lot. He's trying so hard to earn his father-in-law's respect, but still, nothing. Then she added carefully, "But if it makes you uncomfortable, I can turn him down." She stepped closer. That's when the smell hit me again. "You reek of smoke." She paused. He smoked 2 cigarettes while talking. I didn't want him to, but he was in such a bad state I couldn't bring myself to stop him. She turned away. "I'll go shower." 2 days later, a colleague from admin dropped by. I was sorting through a stack of client contracts when I noticed Makoto's file right on top. Out of habit, I scanned the page. The space for the representing attorney was still empty. "Has this case been formally assigned?" I asked. "What?" Of our paralegals responded. Attorney Liu said, "The name will be added later, but the client has already paid the retainer." I gave a slight nod. That afternoon, Willow stopped by my office with a tablet in hand filled with detailed information about the case. Her expression was serious. "We can't let Makoto's situation linger," she said. "It's time to cut through the chaos clean and sharp." I raised an eyebrow and said with a grin, "Didn't realize you were a lawyer and a magician." She blinked in confusion. "What's that supposed to mean?" I chuckled. "The guy worked unpaid for years at his in-laws' company. All the assets are under their names, but ironically that's to his advantage. If he'd actually been on the payroll, he'd probably owe half of it now." I leaned back and added, "And yet, he's willing to pay a significant fee, just to hire you. Either he's desperate or he believes you can pull off something impressive." Willow's face drained of color. She looked at me, hurt. "I haven't accepted it yet. If you're uncomfortable, I can hand it off to someone else." She gripped my arm gently. "Trust me, I know what I'm doing." "It's strictly professional." I smirked. "Funny, first it was, I can say no. Now it's only if you're really against it. You've shifted the responsibility to me." I waved it off. "It's fine. He already paid. Just sign the paperwork and be done with it. After all, it brings in business." Makoto began appearing at the firm regularly. In the beginning, he was still polite. He'd even offer for me to join their meetings if I had concerns. But after one declined a few times, the greetings stopped altogether. He'd simply nod at a distance and walk straight into Willow's office. I'd glance up from my desk and see the frosted glass door quietly closed. Occasionally muffled laughter floated through, slow and intimate. Later that day, I headed into the conference room for our monthly team meeting. After discussing our caseload, a colleague asked, "George, where's your wife?" I had a case I wanted to run by her. I replied calmly, "She's tied up at the moment." The colleague gave a casual nod, then said with a grin, "By the way, that last divorce case you handled. Incredible." I read the judgment. The wife walked away with nothing. Impressive work. I laughed. It was a textbook case. She and her lover tried to hide assets, but the evidence wasn't strong enough at first. If she hadn't settled, it would have been a long shot. In these cases, the real challenge is rarely the lots the judge's biases. If it had been the husband hiding assets, it might have gone very differently. Just then, Willow walked in. "What's that discussion about?" she asked. "You didn't call me in." Before I could answer, the same colleague chuckled and said, "George said you were busy. We're reviewing his recent case." "And didn't you just pick up a new divorce case too? You should check out the shared materials, it might be useful." Willow looked at me briefly, then away. I smiled and said, "Her case is in a whole other category, probably not comparable." Makoto's situation eventually hit a standstill. What surprised me most was Willow coming to me for advice. We'd often exchanged thoughts on complex cases, but since she took this one, our conversations had dried up. She looked perplexed. "I read the case you posted in the group, the one with the couple who turned on each other. How did you get the wife to give back the hidden assets?" I gave her a long look. "Is Makoto planning to do the same?" She frowned. "Why are you being like this? It's just a job. If I were a doctor and my ex was the patient, should I just let them die?" I asked for your input before I even accepted the case. I laughed softly. Force of habit. Forgot it's your case now. I paused, then said, "Remember Sun Tzu's Art of War? The most effective strategy is to win without fighting. Divorce isn't just Lit's emotional warfare. Sometimes you need more than evidence. You need tactics." Willow narrowed her eyes. "So you're saying play the emotional angle?" I shrugged with a smile. "Used wisely, it can be surprisingly effective." Later, she left for the study, deep in thought. I turned toward the window. The calm night sky had suddenly darkened. Winds rustling the trees. Something was brewing. Shortly after, Makoto's case saw a sudden breakthrough. His wife agreed to a generous settlement. He returned to the firm beaming and came straight to me. "Attorney Wong," he said smugly, "looks like you were wrong. My wife broke down and practically begged me to forgive her. Even fought with her father to get me compensated." I chuckled. So the great Mr. Ito finally stood up. It's amazing what a little self-respect can do for a man. His smile vanished. No need for sarcasm. Some people, even when they're down, can still hold space in someone's heart. Others, no matter how smart they are, all they can get is a paycheck. He gave me a scornful look and walked off. But the story wasn't over. His wife, Maria, unexpectedly showed up at our firm. She was emotional, almost pleading. "I just want to talk to my husband. We've been through so much, doesn't any of it matter?" The receptionist led her to Willow's office. But as soon as the door opened, she froze. Inside, Makoto was leaning over Willow's chair, one hand on her desk, body curved protectively around her. His eyes were soft, affectionate. Willow was focused on her screen, but the closeness, the posture, it didn't look like business. Maria's expression turned icy. She laughed bitterly. "Now I get it. No wonder he suddenly wants a divorce. We found someone new. Couldn't even wait." To end the marriage properly, Makoto jumped up, startled. "Mario, are you here?" she shouted, voice cracking. "Didn't your precious law firm call me? Said I had to come sign something. I thought I was the one at fault, that I owed you. I wanted to fix things, but now..." He nearly handed our family's money to this joke. My office was just across the hall. I arrived moments later. Others followed. Willow's office quickly filled with staff. Her cheeks flushed as she stood. "Watch your words. This is a professional environment. Keep making false claims, and I'll sue for slander." Makoto composed himself. "Maria, enough. You cheated on me. Now you're making wild accusations?" We were going over paperwork. I leaned closer because I couldn't read clearly. Whispers rippled through the group. "Come on, Attorney Wong and Attorney Liu. They're rock solid." "Oh, no way she'd risk her career for that." Maria turned to me. "You're her husband?" I nodded firmly. 3 years. And she's been nothing but dedicated and honest. Today's disruption will require a public apology both to her and this firm. Willow glanced at me, then quickly looked away. Maria sneered. And how will you prove anything? One colleague stepped in. We have full surveillance in this office. No blind spots. Willow turned pale. Her voice trembled. What? Since when? I smiled. Just recently. Equipment upgrade. What? Forgot to mention it. She stood frozen. Told me. I smiled again. Standard compliance. But now we can clear this up easily. Colleague handed over a USB stick. Everything's on here timestamped. High race. Sorted. We've got facial recognition now. The footage showed everything: Makoto's despair, Willow's empathy, his emotional outpourings, her silent tears, entire interaction, frame by frame. Willow gently wiped her tears and leaned in, voice barely above a whisper, trying to comfort Makoto. But before her words could land, he pulled her into a sudden embrace. She didn't resist. Frozen in surprise, she sat motionless as he wrapped his arms tightly around her. The footage continued rolling. Makoto suddenly panicked, realizing what was playing on the screen. He lunged forward, trying to slam the laptop shut. "Stop watching," he roared. "None of you have the right." But before the lid could close, Mac Camaria's hand struck his face with another brutal slap. Her eyes were wild with disbelief. "You said there was nothing going on," she shouted. "Why were you already holding her the first time you met? And you have the nerve to say she's not your mistress?" She scoffed bitterly. "Do you think I'm stupid?" But her rage didn't stop there. In one swift motion, she kicked off her heels and stormed across the room. Before Willow could react, the sole of Maria's shoe came crashing down, striking her squarely across the face. Caught completely off guard, Willow was knocked to the ground. Maria pounced. The room echoed with the sharp, savage slaps that followed. Willow had no time to defend herself. Maria's screams rang out like a storm. "You home-wrecking snake. Can't even keep your hands to yourself at work. God knows what you've done outside of it. Shameless. A pretty little lawyer by day, sleeping with clients at night, and you threaten me with a lawsuit?" She spat. "Please. I'm not scared of you. I'll beat the truth out of both of you." The room froze. No one moved. Coworkers exchanged uncertain glances, but not a single one stepped forward. The surveillance footage still played on. Makoto pouring tea into Willow's cup. Draping his coat over her shoulders. Sharing headphones to watch a show. Nothing overtly explicit, but full of quiet intimacy. Fleeting touches, a hand held too long, a hug that lingered. The screen froze on a single moment, Makoto leaning in for a kiss. Willow pushed him away, frustrated but not angry. That single, ambiguous moment painted them both in the worst light. From the corner, someone whispered, "So it's true." Another voice followed. "Willow always seems so put together. Guess no one's what they seem behind closed doors." "I thought that case should have gone to Attorney Wong," someone else muttered. "Now it all makes sense." In the chaos, Makoto had collapsed to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably at Maria's feet, completely unhinged. She stood over him, looking down with disgust, not even bothering to strike him again. My fists were clenched. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. My world spun around me and I turned away, stiffly walking back to my office alone. Behind me, I could still hear their voices. Poor George. Such a good mankind, talented. He didn't deserve this. When the crowd finally stepped in to separate them, Willow's face was swollen, streaked with blood at the corners of her mouth. Shaking, she struggled to her feet. "You assaulted me," she rasped. "I'll press charges," Maria laughed. "Coldly do it. I can pay your hospital bills. While you're at it, tell your lawyer I have a legal team of my own." Then she snatched the USB from the assistant's hands and walked out without looking back. Willow didn't return to the office the next day or the day after that. She spent a week in bed, bruised, sweating through nightmares and painkillers. Still, she tried to explain. "Please, believe me. I never cheated," she whispered through trembling lips. "Yes, I got too close. but I never crossed that line. I just felt sorry for him. He kept telling me how miserable he was. I got swept up in it, but I swear I planned to cut him off after the case ended. I didn't expect it to spiral like this. I regret it. I'm sorry. Then she paused. Do you still want me? But the dominoes had already begun to fall. The Lin family acted with surgical precision. Within 3 days, they had reviewed the footage, clipped the worst parts into a neatly edited montage, and added footage from years ago, an old fling between Makoto and Willow. Then they struck. A lawyer's letter was sent to our firm and, at the same time, the scandal erupted online. Seduced by power, high-profile attorney becomes the other woman, elegant legal queen by day, secret mistress by night. Exclusive footage inside confessions of a rich man's lawyer ex. How I got scammed by my own wife. I was stunned. All I could think was, when the rich decide to retaliate, they don't miss. Their legal team was swift, their PR team merciless. Chapter 10. Willow's perspective. When I received the summons for an emergency shareholders meeting, I knew my career was over. I walked into the conference room, spine straight despite the weight of every eye in the room. For the first time in the firm's history, every single senior partner was present. Even George, my husband, sat silently to the side, unreadable. There was no preamble, no pleasantries, just a stack of documents pushed across the table. It was my original partnership contract accompanied by a formal breach of ethics notice. One of the shareholders spoke without emotion. Attorney Liu, your personal misconduct, especially with a married client, has severely violated our code of conduct. The damage to the firm's reputation is irreparable. You're hereby expelled from the partnership. Legal proceedings for damages will follow. I looked up. George's eyes met mine, cool, detached, as if I were a stranger. My breath caught in my throat. No grief, no sorrow, not even anger, just cold silence. How did it come to this? I wasn't supposed to end up here. George, why do you look at me like that? The regret surged so violently, I could hardly breathe. I remembered that day when Makoto first reappeared at the party. I hadn't thought much of it. In fact, I looked down on him. My husband was brilliant, secure, everything Makoto wasn't. So why? Why did I falter? Maybe it was the pain in his eyes. It's the way he opened old wounds and made me feel. Something I ignored his messages. Reminded myself, you're married now. Boundaries, Willow. Boundaries. But then he returned again. In that moment, when he hugged me out of nowhere, that's when it began to slip. That night I missed a movie I had promised to see with George. And I told my first lie. Makoto kept pressing, bringing up the past, mimicking old habits, stirring half-forgotten memories. He was clumsy, desperate, pathetic even. But I still wavered. And then in the dark stairwell, when he pinned me to the wall and kissed me, something snapped. But not in the way he hoped. Because in that instant, George's calm, unwavering voice echoed in my mind. The highest form of war is to win. Without fighting, I shoved Makoto away and ran. I wanted to end it, fix it, go back. I never got the chance. Chapter 11. The final blow. After the meeting ended, everyone quietly filed out. George stayed seated. Then he stood. Without a word, he handed me a single sheet of paper. Divorce papers, already signed. I stared at them. Then I laughed bitterly. Finally, I asked the one question that had haunted me through it all. Why didn't you fight for me? Willow asked me when I'd installed the security cameras. I paused, rubbed my chin, and replied, probably around the time you turned down Makoto's friend request for the 5th time. Her eyes welled. Slightly, but she gave a faint, self-mocking smile. So, you never trusted me from the start, she said softly. I looked straight at her and smiled. Then tell me, Willow, why didn't you have the courage to accept his request? That's right, courage, because in psychology, avoidance is often rooted in fear. Her fear wasn't irrational. Deep down, she knew that keeping her distance from Makoto was the only way she could preserve the image of fidelity in our marriage. But to me, that kind of loyalty built on proximity avoidance was fragile and conditional. I couldn't accept that. After all, how could I be sure Makoto wouldn't reappear someday? Or that another person like him wouldn't? So I made the decision to respond to Makoto myself. I chose to confront the situation head-on, fully prepared for whatever fallout might follow. Tears began to form in Willow's eyes as she lowered her head into the crook of her arm. Her shoulders trembled with quiet sobs. "George, this feels like a trap. You can't do this. I could have protected what we had. Really could have," she choked. Then suddenly, she sprang up and clung to me tightly. Trembling, she pleaded, "Please, let's not go through with the divorce. I'll listen to you while I'll change. Give me another chance. I never betrayed you. I didn't sleep with him. I've always stayed faithful. Can we talk about starting a family? Let's do that. Let's just live a peaceful life together." But I had reached my limit. Couldn't stay silent anymore. I slapped her and shouted, "What? You think I'm some kind of joke? Do you only discard things after they've rotted? Whether you sign those divorce papers or not, it makes no difference to me. The legal process will go on either way." After that, things moved quickly. Because of the nature of our work, Willow and I had signed a prenuptial agreement. Our finances had always been separated, so the division of assets was straightforward. Willow understood the implications and didn't argue. Signed without much delay. The only shared asset that hadn't been legally split was the house. One suggested we sell it and divide the proceeds. But she declined. "It's my fault," she said. "You keep it. I could never be as cold and detached as you." I didn't argue. "I don't pass up money." When we went to the civil affairs office to finalize the divorce, she suddenly called out to me as I was walking away. "George, if we'd just skipped that party that day none of this would have happened. Maybe we'd still be together now, just living simply 3 meals a day, 4 seasons a year, maybe even a child. If only those complicated people never showed up." I got in the car and replied without turning back, "There's no such thing as if." Chapter 12. In the aftermath, colleagues started talking. The consensus was that Willow had been dismissed from the firm. The viral video had made its rounds, and her professional reputation was in ruins. No firm wanted to be associated with her anymore. Honestly, it made sense. Reputation is everything in our field. With a background like hers, no one was willing to gamble on her causing further damage down the line. I had seen her employment contract, including the penalty clause. The amount wasn't unmanageable, at least not before. But now that her name was stained and no firms would hire her, who knows how long it'll take for her to pay it back if she ever can. One colleague sighed and said she was actually really talented. What a waste. Years of study, years of client work hits, all gone, just like that. Another chimed in. "And that guy? He ended up even worse." I leaned closer. Someone scoffed. He was about to land a major payout. But the Lin family doesn't play games. They had him beaten and thrown out literally with nothing but his underwear. Almost froze that night. Another voice added, "Honestly, they were merciful. If they'd really wanted to ruin him, they could have buried him in debt. The fact that he walked away without that is already a gift." I smirked. Well, they're both single now. Nothing in their way. The office erupted in laughter. One person leaned in and said, "George, you don't even know the half of it." Willow actually confronted Makoto afterward, blamed him for dragging her into this whole mess and demanded compensation, said she'd sue if he didn't pay up. Makoto, apparently hanging by a thread already, snapped. Enraged, he slapped her across the face and accused her of being pathetic, trying to shift the blame when it was all her doing. The scene was chaotic. Her hair was disheveled, her expression completely unhinged. It was a full-blown meltdown, someone said. Ugly to watch. One of the guys smirked and whispered, "I actually caught the whole thing on video, secretly recorded it. George, want to see?" I joked, "You're more invested in their drama than I am." He waved me off and said, "Hey, life's tough. If you get free entertainment, might as well enjoy it." I chuckled. "Then how about a free dinner tonight? You in?" He whooped and darted into the office, yelling, "George is buying dinner tonight. No slowpokes."